Hey guys, Sean Smith with the PPC AMS Accelerator, and we have a student from the PPC AMS Accelerator here. It's Destaney with Sean. How's it going, Destaney?
It's going well.
Cool.
Fantastic after joining the course.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So thanks for taking some time to just, talk about your experience with the program. So let's kind of go over, first off, like who you are, what you do, and then let me know, like, what type of results, what was the before and after? Like, what type of like value are you getting from the program that you weren't getting before? And then kind of go over like the details and the specific numbers. Is that cool?
Yeah, for sure.
Let's do it.
So, um, as Sean said, I'm Destiny. I run an agency called Better AMS. We focus primarily on sponsored brands initially. There's a pretty big gap in the market from the AMS side of things and the Seller Central side of things. So that was our main focus. And then ever since the platforms have converged, we've actually looked at starting on the sponsored product side. We've had a few clients ask for it.
Cool.
And my initial background was on the sponsored side, but that was 2.5 years ago, and so much has changed. And at that point was when I really decided that I needed something else to help accelerate me, because I'm still managing 11 accounts on sponsored brands, and I need to really jump in and have a course in place that taught me the automations and the bid management, which is why I decided to go with PPC AMS Accelerator.
Cool. So I guess what type of value you're getting from the program, like before joining and then after joining?
Yeah, so the biggest thing for me so far has been the audit-based selling. I've actually ran that on the AMS side and it was fantastic, but on the sponsor side, I had nothing in place for that. So I primarily started the audit-based selling around 3 weeks ago, and I've had calls with quite a few clients, and I've actually signed two brands from the audit-based selling. So
Cool.
that was $2,500 a month contract for both of those. So it has a potential for $30,000 of lifetime value if they stay for a year, of course,
Yep.
which is pretty good considering it pays for the course.
Yeah. So
And
so two brands at $2,500 a month a piece, right?
no, that's together.
Together. So about
Yes.
$1,250 a piece.
Uh-huh.
So two brands, $1,250 a piece. Yeah, so that'd be like 2,500. Yeah, roughly 30K in contracts. And then how does the audit based, approach helped the client as well? Like help the Amazon businesses that you're working with?
Yeah, for sure. So that's my cat.
We have a guest.
Um,
Welcome.
Total sponsored products that I'm managing for those two accounts was $396,000 year to date.
Cool.
And per month, we forecasted an additional $40,000 in sponsored product sales across those two accounts. And
Cool.
that's with lowering total ACOS and maintaining a consistent 15 to 20% ACOS.
Yeah.
So being able to talk to the client and be like, we have the potential to increase your sales by 40,000 a month just on the sponsored product side was huge.
Yeah, like the really great thing about having a good auditing system, like it not only helps you with like it helps you convey your value, right? It helps you convey like
Uh-huh.
what you can actually do in a tangible way. And like a good audit is like uses really good processes. Like, and it uses stuff that makes sense. Like there are bad audits out there where like you could just make stuff up, right? Because you could, like, if you didn't deduplicate keywords, right? Let's say you didn't deduplicate the keywords in the search term report, you could say, hey, I can do an additional blah blah blah, but it's going to be a ton of duplicate keywords, which could cause
Uh-huh.
problems. But like having, like, we deduplicate the keywords against the search terms so that we can find stuff that like we're currently not bidding on, because we don't want to duplicate things because it doesn't give us that additional organic value. And so like
Mhm.
I think that's like the really good thing about a good solid audit. And it is a forecast, so it's always, rough. It's always like, hey, this is about what we can do. But I feel like when you walk through the system with the business that you're going to potentially work with, they start to like see the value and they see your technical
Mhm.
skill set, and really smart sellers value that. Like they value technical skill sets, because usually like larger brands and smarter like sellers, they know PPC pretty well, and technically they're pretty savvy. And so when
Uh-huh.
they're talking to service providers, they can sniff out whether or not someone is kind of like, maybe not as good on the technical side versus is good on the technical side and knows how to analyze the data, right? You have to understand the definition of each data point in that spreadsheet to be able to like make an accurate analysis. So like it really gives value to both sides, and they learn something as well. Like they're like, whoa, like, and most people aren't doing it. So like, they're like, wow, that's cool. Like, it's really cool to see stuff like that. Yeah, cool. That's awesome. So, value-based, audit-based selling, and then you got 11 account or 2 brands, 2,500 a month. Cool. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Added to that, I was pretty conservative with both of those audits because this was the first time I've went through the sponsored products side.
Yep.
So with both of those 2 calls, I was extremely conservative, walked through the audit, and I still signed them. And I actually have another around $7,000 of warm leads that I've already sent decent proposals to. We've talked through, and they're really considering closing. So that's another potential for $80,000 of revenue a year just based off the audit-based selling. That's not even walking through the sponsored brand side or anything else.
Dang. So that's because of the audit. So like, do you feel like having an audit for sponsored products helps you, sign more clients?
100%. That's I would say that closing is specifically related to the audit, because a lot of these people have talked to other agencies, and a lot of those agencies kind of go through and cover the basics. You need more campaigns on this, more campaigns on this, but there's no financial attachment to actually how much money they'll be saving from that audit.
Cool. So you've been able to, like, people when you're on a like a call with an Amazon brand, they'll tell you that they've talked to other companies, and then they'll give you some details around like what they said. What do they say? When you're on the phone call, I'm assuming it's around 45 minutes to an hour. You probably do the screen share, which is what we do. And because you got to show them. And it's cool because a lot of people, they don't want to like they think giving everything away is a bad thing, but like, you want to show them everything. Like, you want to like go through the filters. Here's what I did. Here's like every little detail, because like that differentiates you, because then they know everything. Like, and knowledge is power. So like when you're on those calls, like they see the value, but how do they compare when you're done? How do they compare your like how you went through things versus the other agencies? You said they cover the basics. Are there any other things that they were missing?
I think the 2 biggest things that the client gets out of it is the customer centricness of it, that we're already trying to provide as much value up front. You're not even paying us, and we took the time to analyze your account to this level of depth. They get a lot of trust up front, because they realize if they're willing to go this far just on the audit, they're willing to work their ass off pretty much throughout the rest of the account. So that's been a really big selling point for me. And another one is just being able to base a retainer off our provided value.
Yep.
I don't like to have one blanket cost, because there's so many different solutions for brands depending on category, depending on number of ASINs and things like that. Yep. So being able to adjust our retainer in a way that is mutually beneficial for both of us, that's been a really large selling point as well.
And it's like a psychology thing, right? Like when you get on a phone call, it's all psychology, right? Like when you get on a phone call and somebody says, 10 grand, it's my package is 10 grand. And then you haven't talked about anything else. Kind of what happens is like it like causes like a reaction to where they're just like cost. But when you're like, let's go through the audit, and they see what type of like return that they can get, then what happens is they go from like a cost mentality to like an investment mentality. And so like
100%.
You know what I mean? It's almost like a transition. Like if it was like a scale, and like cost thinking was over here and like investment thinking was over here, when they start to see the numbers and they see what you're doing, it's like, and now this is an investment, right? It's like when you invest in like anything, like you do a lot of research beforehand, and then you make the investment because you're looking for a return. So like in stocks and stuff, like companies will do tons of research before they make these big investments in something, because they want a return. They wouldn't just go out there and pay it. It's the same concept. Yep. You're giving them data so that they can be like, all right. So in the next 60 days, we can potentially expect this amount of sales at this potential ACOS. Now it's an investment for them, because now they're seeing the return. And so
definitely
it's better for both of you guys, because it makes it so much more comfortable for them to pay for the service when they have like a numerical foundation. Like going off of just like, oh, you need to launch a campaign for this, and I've got 10 keywords, but like we're looking at like dollars. Like we want to see how do we like translate everything back to dollars, because that's really what businesses run on. So I think like that really helps with like getting the Amazon brand that you're going to work with to just kind of like think more like it's an investment, and it's just safer for them. And it's like
much lower risk,
and the level of detail is great. So that's cool, and that's probably like going to help with your conversion rate. You like you said, helps with your conversion rates. I'm sure they're super high because you don't, because most people aren't doing stuff like that, and they don't have a good like a really detailed auditing process that like has like strong sound logic based on the platform.
It definitely helps keep us premium, which has kind of always been our main selling point, is that we want to help you scale your ads. Because we know you already have a decent foundation typically. So that's where the audit comes in, is being able to look at those keywords and they have a great start, but where could they be? So the deduping process is really large for that. And on the sponsored brand side, it's the same thing. They could have really strong sponsored products, but being able to dedupe those keywords we're using on SB and really calculate kind of the market share they're missing on the sponsored brand side, it's insane.
That's cool. That's so cool. Cool. So what else has been giving you like some value?
Honestly, probably one of the biggest things is the Facebook group.
Cool.
I'm in 90,000 groups, of course, all over Facebook, and we all do a ton of networking on that. But I feel like a lot of the bigger groups are kind of losing their value because so many people are coming into the group and it's not quite as premium. So for the accelerator, I know you kind of vet people very precisely before they're even allowed in. So having a foundation of people who already know PPC, I feel like just makes the group stronger. Because when we hop in and ask questions, they're usually expert level mastermind questions. So I've been able to learn a lot, and I've been able to kind of see a lot of the weak areas that some people have, and that provides me with content to build off of as well.
Yeah, the group's really interesting because like you're right. Like I've been in groups for a while too, and on Facebook for a while because the Amazon world, it kind of like, it has gravitated towards the Facebook area for content, and I do like our group. Like you said, it's super highly vetted, and we do a lot of work on the back end to make sure that the people that join are like extremely technically savvy. And I'm telling you, man, like I'm always impressed by the questions people ask in that group. Like I learn a lot. Like it's crazy. Yes. Like I learn stuff because we have agencies in the group. We've got larger brands, and they're doing stuff like they're running like crazy like video and search stuff, and so I'm learning a lot about stuff that's a little outside it, but it's still advertising. And what I love is the unique problems that come up that get solved, because like that's how you kind of like get better and better, is like these more technical problems that you can solve. It like not only helps you solve that problem in the future, but it gives you a deeper understanding of like how the platform works, and like it helps you to like really think more creatively about things that you can do using like historical like data that you've learned. It's a cool group, man. Like people ask really good questions, and like sometimes like I'm like, man, this is a hard question. Like that's why like and I don't know, like when I answer questions, I can't go out and answer a lot of questions in a lot of groups because I like to provide really detailed answers. Like I mean like excruciating detail, because it's like especially with PPC, because it's such a numbers game and it's such an analytical thing. And I usually take that approach to most things in my life, but like, which is good because like it helps me think that way all the time. But like when I'm answering questions in the group, like I'm always like, I have to like create these long answers because I feel like I gotta cover everything. And so I think that really, and the cool thing is it's like a reciprocal thing. So when I answer the question in that longer form, then psychologically the other members, when they ask questions or they answer questions, they use a similar approach. And so it keeps the quality of the content, I think, like really high.
Definitely. I've loved seeing all the different methodology because, I mean, certain people are in different situations. I know Tony's kind of mentioned some really interesting questions from situations I haven't yet been in. Yep. And it's kind of interesting to be able to look at that and be like, that's a great way to apply that approach. It's something I've never faced before. So that's been really cool for me as well, because it's so category based, it's product based, it's stages of seller's life, everything PPC changes. And that's another thing area where I think you did a great job in the program. Um, like I said, my past was in sponsored products, but back then it was kind of like one auto campaign, one
Yeah.
major campaign, and that was it. That's all everyone was recommending. And
Yeah.
now it's so competitive. You really have to get granular with your strategies, and
Yep.
you have to do the different types of targeting. And that's how we're going to come out on top still, is by focusing on a lot of those different strategies instead of the main three that everyone else is doing.
Yeah, and for a long time that was how it was, right? Like it was like auto and then like one manual for each product and that was it. There was no
Yep.
like crazy hyper testing and just like crazy amount of campaigns. I mean, it's
Yep.
ridiculous, man. So what did Tony, like what are some stuff that you learned from Tony specifically in the group? I'm curious.
He posted a really interesting insight on how to basically the screenshot of the bid adjustments
Yep.
and with suggested bids from Amazon. And we kind of had a decent conversation about that. And then another thing he posted about was having a product in a niche category and not performing well.
Yep.
And it's something that I've actually faced, having just a highly competitive category. You have to make sure up front you set expectations with the client, or else you'll never make that product succeed. Because,
Yep.
I mean, PPC is a lot and it covers a lot on Amazon, but it's just a small piece of that flywheel. And if you don't have a great listing, if you don't have a good product in a good niche, we can't make your product succeed. And I think there is a lot of value added, especially when you responded with the video of products that you try to avoid.
Yeah, categories. There's certain
Yeah.
like me and Taylor, we learned this early on that there are certain categories you want to really like audit differently a little bit. You got to look at cost per click and yeah, I mean it's one of those things. He's taken on some pretty early stage sellers in some really competitive markets and where the cost per click is just brutally high. And I've worked on people's accounts who have entered those markets and like literally like a few months later they shut their Amazon business down because
Yep.
it's just too hard, man. Like certain supplements, there's certain pet supplements and
Yeah.
yeah, having that awareness is good, especially as like a service provider, because you know what to avoid and what not to avoid. Like you know how to analyze the data, right? Now you go in
Yep.
and be like, why is ACOS high? Like, oh, it's because the CPC is like 250. And so like you're like, man, like I can't work with this account because this person wants half the ACOS, and this market is just absolutely, the ad auction is just like super high, and so not that kind of helps you prevent some headaches, I think. And that's like, so that's going to save you some money as well, because the time that you would spend maybe working with those clients where you think you can get them results that you can't because you're good at analyzing data, that wastes time and energy for both you guys. And so it really saves people like sellers and yourself a lot of time and money when you are able to like assess things really accurately and cross analyze data points and stuff like that.
Yeah. Being able to see it holistically makes such a big difference, because I feel like PPC is oftentimes kind of a scapegoat for a non good performing listing. They're always like, why is my ACOS like this? Why is it like this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm doing all of this. So
the hardest
it's kind of one of those. Go ahead.
I was going to say the hardest conversation is, it's an organic problem. It's like, oh, my PPC. And then you're like, well, you're getting like almost no sessions. A big one is PPC to organic ratio, right? Like if you have a super high PPC to organic ratio, that's a huge problem. So like, I think that's like what really differentiates us is like the advanced level analytics and bringing that skill set, because, when you can gather more like good data points, not just any data points, when you can create equations and come up with data that actually like informs a decision in a smart way, then it just, man, it like really helps you to just be like off the charts,
Yeah, I know when I jump on calls, I always preach kind of a blended approach of having your automation, having your software, but also having a human analysis on that. And that's where I feel like you did a great job with everything you have, because agility is the automation side of things to help scale. But you also provide those updates pretty much weekly on other things that happen. And I've used Entourage and I've used Scope in the past, and they're great. Having software is great, but there's always going to be a lag if you don't have a human that like completely understands what they're doing on that account. And that's one of the biggest value add you have, is it's not a one and done course.
Yep.
It's a lifelong program where you continue to learn, you continue to grow, and you continue to overcome those barriers to entry that Amazon keeps adding.
Yep. And it's like, what built computers, right? Humans built computers.
Hmm.
So you always have to take a human first approach to everything
Hmm.
because humans have built like technology. And so like when
Yeah.
you're trying to substitute technology for a human, like you can do that to an extent, but the human has to kind of evolve with the machine. So like the
Hmm.
machine's going to be able to do stuff like repetitive stuff. So the human has to step back and be like, hey, the machine has that covered. What do I do? So you're like, you
Yep.
analyze the machine. You look at the machine's inputs and outputs, and then you get the machine to evolve by, hitting it. So like, yeah, I'm a huge, I think I think one of the big things that sellers do too early is they hand off their PPC to service providers way too early, and they hand off their to like even employees or software too early. I'm not against any of that stuff. I say go for it, but you have to understand it yourself because if you don't, how are you gonna understand? How are you gonna accurately evaluate an employee, service provider, or
Yep.
software? And
100%.
PPC on Amazon is a very unique breed in the sense that it represents a huge piece of the puzzle, like a huge, like,
Hmm.
I mean, there are accounts that 40% of the revenue comes from PPC. And that's just analyzing PPC sales divided by total sales. That doesn't even include the organic stuff that you can't measure. So it's
Yep.
like, man, like, you got to know that stuff, man. Like, that is like, you better be like a freaking wizard with that stuff because if you don't,
Yep.
you're going to, I don't know, it's just, you're going to kind of sink over time. And dude, trust me, man, like, I see Amazon businesses that are really big that are horrible at advertising, but they've gotten there because Amazon is such a great platform, man. You don't have to have this strong skill set to like, you have to be good at product research and stuff like that. But like a lot of people have made money, without having to be like all these, but you have to evolve. And the platform's
Yep.
evolving very quickly. And
Definitely.
it's still early days, man. If you look at the amount
Yeah.
of market share Amazon advertising has compared to Google and Facebook, it's very small. And so, and I know they're going after that market share. And I mean, they are very small in the market. So imagine what their platform is going to look like when they're, comparable to AdWords and Facebook. It's
Yep.
going to be like freaking settings everywhere, like
Yep.
all these little buttons.
Definitely.
Like, what do you do with them? It's like command center. Like,
Yep.
yeah.
That was just how I felt after my 2-year hiatus with sponsored products. I jumped in there and I'm like, what is all this targeting?
Yeah.
Speaking
Yep.
of that, I actually did go through your product targeting module
Yep.
from the sponsored product side because I'm kind of slowly rolling out these initiatives across the new clients I did sign instead of doing
Cool.
all at once because that would be a pain for my agency to try to learn.
Yeah.
And I did the refined category targeting from week 5. And one of the campaigns within 7 days drove $2,000 in sales at under a 2% ACOS.
Category targeting?
Yeah,
Cool. No
it was
way.
insane. Yeah,
That's
I think
insane.
within 5 days, it was like a 1.8% ACOS.
Wow.
And it was just like, I've managed so many campaigns, and that one really stood out. I was like, this is amazing.
It's so funny because when I built that module, I had no data because Amazon rolled it out in November. So
Yeah.
I was just like it's kind of funny. Like when you're given a new thing, you have to use the previous things to be able to create a system around the new thing. And so
Yep.
like I was like, what is like roughly the best way to do this? And I'm always balancing between like scalability and like granularity. Because if you go too granular, it's not scalable. But if you go too broad, you can scale it, but it's not granular enough, and you'll lose
Yep.
sales, to waste money. So when I created that, I was just like, it's so brutal because I'm just like how granular do we need to go versus like that, like stuff like that. And at the time, you couldn't build it in the bulk files. Now you can. You can build category targeting, product targeting in bulk files, which is amazing. But before you couldn't, and it's crazy, like because we built that system, like it's like basically targeting categories. You target the category, but you target people who are more expensive than you, and then like
Review quality and brands.
Yeah, exactly. So you're like you have these specific things like based on like you perform better if you're a cheaper product. You perform better if you have a higher rating. That's cool, man. That's a little nugget right there.
Yeah, it was amazing. That's probably been one of my favorite parts about the course is just the granularity of teaching people those small things that you need to do, but combining them on a scalable level
Yep.
I think that's been huge because they understand the foundation, so they're able to build on it.
Exactly. Because like that knowledge goes back to it. I love it.
Uh-huh.
All right, Destiny. Sounds like you're getting really good results from the accelerator, and I'm just so happy for that because that's like what I care about like a lot.
Definitely.
So like
Making my life
tangible,
easier.
numerical results. Awesome. So where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
Facebook, LinkedIn, you'll see my
Destiny.
name when you tag me in it. Yes. And then you can also search me by Better AMS.
Cool. Awesome. All right, Destiny. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I will talk to you later.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean.
Bye.
All right. Bye.